Hello, good evening, and welcome to Youth Empowerment Show. With me, I was going to say with your host, but with me, Dami Osunbayo. And I'm actually gathered today, not by myself, but I'm here with Maria.
Irma.
That's it.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too as well. And if you do not recognize, you were here on
I was here on the first show we did together.
Yes, our first opening show, she was there on the left side. Well, today, there's a lot to cover. I know, when it comes to youth empowerment, there's always a lot to talk about, but we're going to keep it to the present and the now. Yeah. So what we fully came up with, we're going to talk about is lockdown and the issues that come up from it, right? There was a few, because you could say that there's a lot of, well, for anyone that doesn't know, in the UK, our brother Boris Johnson, he's actually put on the second
UK lockdown.
Second lockdown, and it's going to be taking effect, and it's literally a strict lockdown. We're going to be following the rules and regulations. If anyone that doesn't know it, just type it online, you see it. But due to this lockdown, we felt like there's going to be a lot of issues that people are facing, because now people are being forced to go into a second lockdown, having them to stay in their houses and not basically not do anything.
Exactly.
Maybe
it puts a stop on daily life again.
Exactly, again. So people, I don't think people are happy with it, but for us, when we sat down, we were thinking, what could it be? Like, what kind of issues would they be facing?
Precisely. It's not just the issues that we're covering today, it's the possible successes that this lockdown might bring about as well.
And that's true, because it's not just only negatives we want to focus on, okay? We don't want to bring the bad side. There's always a positive to everything. But at the moment, there's a few negatives, of course.
Definitely.
As much as we want to say that there is no negative, there's positive. There is some negatives. And we saw from things like mental illnesses, the rise is risen due to this pandemic. We also stuff like breakdown of family relationships, domestic abuse has risen, and even... Okay, I'm at fault with this one, but I mean, a lot of people have put on weight. I feel like I'm eating a lot more than I used to. Yeah. I know you're thinking.
We don't speak on that.
Yeah, I see your eyes.
I say nothing.
No, I see your eyes. You're trying to say I'm looking fat now, innit, right?
You're not.
No, but that's one of the few negatives that there was more. Yeah. But because obviously due to the time that we have, we don't want to,
Exactly, we don't want to
go too
focus on the small
exactly
details.
So we're going to focus on what we can, and one of the main issues people are facing is really mental illnesses. It's reason. I'm talking, when you see the numbers, it's here. It's like more than 60% of adults and 68% of youths have actually said mental illness has actually risen during this pandemic, which is crazy.
That's a staggering figure, especially when you consider the fact that most adults will not even admit that mental health is a problem to them to begin with.
That's true. And is it because they don't want to, they don't want to pay mind to it, or they actually just don't know it's a problem?
I don't think it's either of those things. I think mental health comes with a stigma, and the moment you admit that your mental health is not where you want it to be, is the moment that everyone else around you, that you admit that to, views you as unstable and labels you. Precisely. Labels you as a problem. And that is why I don't think adults are so willing to admit that mental health is a problem to them.
Because they also don't want to, I'm guessing, to be seen as weak.
Yeah, definitely.
Vulnerable.
Exactly.
See, but it's true. I can, and that's why that's part of the numbers. That's why it's also increased, because they don't want to admit, and because they're not admitting, I'm guessing it's also beating them on the inside.
Precisely.
And also making their own situations a bit worse.
Yeah.
And I think as well, because we want to also think about the youth. Why is it that the youths are not also being able to, fight against these mental illnesses? Like, is it that they're accepting the fact that they have issues, or what? I don't know.
I would say that most youths, when it comes to mental health, we have a grasp on it.
Mm-hmm.
Our problem is, despite being able to fight it and being able to cope with it, we don't know how to solve it. We view it as a problem that needs to be solved immediately. And why that doesn't work is you can't view mental health as a problem. Your mental health is like a child. You still need to take care of it as if it's a child. You are a person, you need to be taken care of. Your feelings matter. The moment you view mental health as a problem is the moment you don't view mental health as also a solution. Because you can have bad mental health all you want. You can also have positive mental health. You
Yes,
can have
you can.
a good grasp on your emotions and a good coping mechanism. Correct?
That's very true. Go on.
So the moment that you use mental health as a tool to excel and to cope with your own insecurities, issues, just mental health, like mental illnesses, the moment that you use your mental health and the way that you impact your mental health positively, that depends on how you cope with your mental health. And in quarantine, what I've noticed is people have lost touch with how to take care of themselves.
Yes, I have to say so because it's the being in this lockdown, it brings up a lot of stressful whatever. They just go through a lot of stress, and it's funny that you said that they once they view it as a problem, they're giving it more power instead of seeing it as actually it's the way of life. It's not something you should label as a problem.
Precisely.
Because once you label it as a problem, you end up labeling it as like an excuse for future.
Yeah, precisely. And that's another thing. Excuses are something that we have been making during the entire pandemic. I think that that comes into the fact that some of us have been gaining weight. Precisely. We are using the pandemic as an excuse to neglect ourselves in a way.
Yes.
And neglect family relationships as well.
See, and it's funny, that's one of the things there, because which we'll get to the solution, we will get to the solution, but like in this pandemic, it's as much as, everyone's not going to be inside their house, everyone's going to be stuck indoors with their families and everything. They should be seeing it as a moment to actually, create more connection, but instead, they're seeing that, oh my goodness, I'm here with the people I don't like to talk with, or I don't want to spend time with, and they're doing this one. They start resorting into using illegal drugs. Like 18 to 24-year-olds, there's actually been a massive rise. Almost 65% of them have actually gone into using, illegal drugs just to cope with the stress of pandemic.
Yeah.
Which, in my eyes, I have to say, it's an excuse.
Yeah, it is definitely an excuse. And speaking of the 65% of 18 to 24-year-olds, LBC did a show where they focused on, I think it's a case study where they focused on massive numbers of children not being in school before the pandemic was, before the lockdown was announced. And that was unexplained absences. What that gives us is time to understand that not only are people going into self-isolation due to COVID, but parents are having to resort to things that they wouldn't resort to otherwise to cope with COVID. And I don't just mean...
Things like what? Sorry, but go on.
I don't just mean the immediate, this is a pandemic, we have to isolate ourselves, we have to keep ourselves safe. It's the long run, As much as COVID may be a issue that we have to take extremely seriously, it is not the end battle.
It's not.
COVID is a hurdle, sure. But at the end of the finish line, we have to think of ourselves as we might have to go through this, but we also have to go through with living costs, living expenses.
We should basically learn from this pandemic rather
Precisely.
than beat ourselves from it.
Precisely. And the biggest issues that have plagued families all over the UK and outside the UK as well is coping with living expenses. And that has been the reason why there has been a rise in crime recently.
Yes, because they'll always have to, you got to pay your bills.
Precisely.
People got to pay their bills, but now you're telling them, oh, sorry, or not even sorry, but, we're going straight into a lockdown.
Precisely.
We don't care about, because I also have an issue with that, because I feel, if you're going to put us into a second lockdown, you should already have come up with schemes or results.
Exactly.
Not results, but, solutions.
Yeah.
In order to, make people at ease, because like you just said, people have
been resorting to crime.
People have living expenses or living things, whatever. They have bills to pay, and then you tell them not to, just get out of work and stay in your house. After the first month, of the first money they get, that's it. So what do you expect them to do after that? Just chill at home,
Precisely.
wait?
And the government has definitely not been doing enough to fix this.
Oh,
I mean, sure, they've been doing the Eat Out to Help Out scheme, but who's that really helping? That's just
it's only taking care of your belly right there.
Precisely. That's only really doing one thing, two things perhaps. That is one, increasing the spread of COVID, because you have people going outside and eating outside, which is the bigger problem. I would not mind it otherwise. And then the second thing that you have is you have the government using their resources, instead of creating new incentives to create more jobs, to
new ways, teaching them how to make money. I get you.
Not even just teaching them how to make money. It's getting the redundant population right now and giving them somewhere to work, because so many businesses have gone out of business that there are not enough places to work for people that have lost their jobs, simply. So instead of doing the Eat Out to Help Out scheme, they should have really spent it on new projects that they could have done.
Anything, just anyhow to get results and it's like solutions. But the question is, like I already asked earlier, is it because they don't? Because they would have sat down. You see how you sit down before every meeting, you plan out your meeting.
Precisely.
Don't you think they would have sat down and planned out, okay, this is the issues that will come up from a second lockdown. This is the problems, like I already just said. So what are the solutions? Don't you think they did that, or do you just think they don't care? Or is it that they feel that's too much money that's going to be put into this situation? Let's not put too much money into the solutions. Let's just not even bother about that. What do you think it is?
I think that what the government does is, when they sit down to have these meetings, they don't think in a qualitative manner, right? They think quantity. How can we save more lives? How can we save more businesses? How can we save what we have? They do not think of they do not think in the long run. What they're thinking about is, what can we do for the here and now? Not what can we do for the future. You see this everywhere. You see them. You see the way they've treated the first lockdown. We've had plenty of warning beforehand of how we should have treated the lockdown, because we've seen examples. Correct? We've seen Italy. We've seen Germany. Before
most countries in this,
Before England went into lockdown in the first place, we saw how other countries dealt with it and what worked and what didn't. What didn't work is the way that the UK handled its first lockdown. Because what you have is a lot of redundant people that have just been let out of the house for good. And what are they going to do at that point? They're going to use the loss of their money to struggle.
Literally struggle and just...
to struggle, and the rest of what they have left over, they're either going to use to get into drug and crime, like drug violence and gang violence, to make more money to survive on, or if they're going to spend it drowning their sorrows in something.
That's the thing, because like it boils down to excuses, but I don't want to go into that deep one. It's more of, you the government, you're being... It's actually they're just thinking about just one side. They're just being one-sided or one-minded, whatever. But what it is like, if you're going to go into a lockdown, you should just come up with a solution. You should definitely have come up with a solution. The Eat Out and Help Out scheme. Today, what's his name? Sunak. I don't know how to pronounce his name. One of the Labour guys. He's even extended the Eat Out scheme up. No, not Eat Out scheme. The furlough scheme all up until March. Yes, that is good. But then, how are you taking care of others? There's so many other people out there. There's a massive percentage of people that have obviously been redundant. They've lost their jobs, and now they're having to fend or live on their savings that they've had in the last few years.
Exactly. And
once that money runs out, and they've saved the money for 3-4 years of the time working there, and it's all going to be gone within 8 months.
Exactly. And the thing is, most people don't even have that many savings.
Some people don't.
So many people have less than £100 of savings.
True. But the thing is, go on, sorry.
Yeah, like the amount of people that struggle just because they don't have savings in the first place, you can imagine what they're dealing with is massive debt.
Big debt. And the question, that's the thing, is the government I've always said that I don't want to be mean. I do not want to be mean onto the government because I love living in this country. Okay, so the UK, we love this place, don't we? We love this place. Cool, but no, where I'm going to go with this is, yes, I love the place. Yes, I love the way this country is, but I feel that a lot more can be done.
Definitely.
A lot more can be done, but they don't want to do it. So it always boils down to what I've heard a lot of people say since I was growing up. Don't ever think the government is actually out there to fend for you, because they're not. They're really out there to fend for themselves and their pockets right there. Because, like you said, they only care about the now. They don't want to think about how is, they don't want to invest in futures. They don't want to think about tomorrow because they feel like that's a bit too stressful, and they want the results now, isn't it?
Precisely.
So, I'm okay, cool. That's the mental illness, and I'm thinking, okay. First question, what do you think is a solution for this? Just for this mental illness, what do you think is a way to tackle it? People being, seeing the numbers. The numbers are definitely going to rise again.
I would say that the numbers of mental health declines are going to go up again, staggeringly so, because not only are people going to go through another lockdown, which in itself is a massive stress and a massive deterrent to healthy habits.
People were just happy about to get into, they were just happy coming out of the first one.
Precisely. We were happy coming out of the first one. We didn't want to go back into another one.
No.
Well, some people did predict the second one. What we do have right now is the dread of, we know what's going to happen. We know how much it's going to affect us. We don't want to do anything about it because we just want to wallow in our sorrows again.
Yes, and that is a sad way to look at it, isn't it?
Yeah, that is a very sad way to look at it, and it's the saddest thing is the amount of people that do look at it that way.
But it also goes back to the fact that it's not their fault.
Precisely.
But it's also they don't see any way out of this.
Yeah.
Because there's no second job. Because the second job is also being closed down because of the lockdown. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So their second option is out of the window. And now, like we said, some of them didn't even save up to £100, let alone 2,000. They didn't save that kind of money. So they're about to literally go skin. And it's a tough one to tackle. I really do think it's a very, very tough one to tackle.
Definitely.
For me, as a solution when it comes to just mental health, more support groups.
Definitely. I have a feeling that because of the lockdown, but more importantly, because of the divide between people that has happened due to lockdown, people have taken the initiative to create support networks for themselves. Yes. For most people, that just means creating a better relationship with their family. Mm-hmm. For other people, it generally does mean creating platforms on which they can interact with other people, and that is something that I find absolutely astonishing that people have had the drive to do just because of lockdown.
Yeah, because I think because people also have more time on their hands, so and maybe they themselves might have gone through this as well. Some people have gone through this personally, and they've had a taste of this situation, so they feel like the best way. Because just the same way we're thinking of a solution, they thought about a solution. And I agree with the fact of support groups are very helpful. Yes, in this pandemic, people it's a bit tougher how we'll be able to go out. But if it's the case of getting social workers or key workers or, groups to come into the house, no more than 2, of course, no more than 2. But certain, groups just to come in and give that support to people that are actually out there. It shows that, one, we are trying to take a step forward to solving the situation, and also if the government gets involved, it also puts them in a good light.
Definitely. And what the government has to think about is, it doesn't matter how their COVID response pans out. What to them matters is their re-election chances.
Yes, that's all they matter.
And if you think about it like that, then you're never going to get re-elected because you never solved the problem.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do agree with that, because instead of you being part of the solution, because then once you're part of the solution, you will be remembered.
Yeah, precisely.
Who remembers somebody that? Who remembers somebody that causes a problem? But you kind of do. But
you remember the people who cause a problem. You remember the people who cause the solution, but you never remember the people in the middle.
True. And who is the people in the middle? Who do you reckon is the people in the middle?
I'd say the people in the middle are our current government.
Cool.
Yeah.
I do agree.
There are
with that.
definitely people who cause more problems than they
That's the thing, because they don't come up with solutions. I mean,
Precisely.
they act like they do, but then they don't really implement the solutions.
Definitely.
And I agree with, I do think that a lot more has to be done by the government than just talking to us.
Yeah.
But I also am just happy that we're standing for something. And also another one to me is domestic abuse. You know, I think domestic abuse, honestly, that's crazy again. Okay, it's a whole different ballgame, because, you know, people were so happy having to. Some people in families, they were happy to knowing that they were going to work and they were leaving an abusive partner in the house. You know, some people were so happy to go to work, but now that they have to be in a lockdown, they now know they're being locked up. Like, there are two lockdowns.
Precisely.
Lockdown in the government in the UK, but they're also now in a lockdown in their house with an abusive partner.
Precisely.
And I think that is disgusting.
Definitely. And while during, like, I've read over the lockdown rules, and one of the things that it did say is you can go out if you live with an abusive partner, but it's not a problem for them. However,
But they're going to get fined.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
No,
sorry.
they're not going to get fined if that's the issue, because you can go straight to the police and they investigate the issue nonetheless.
True.
Yes.
Okay. True.
The problem is that not many people know about that, because you have to realize that many people in abusive relationships, they don't even know the language to begin with. How are you meant to tell someone that you can go out if you are being abused if they don't understand you?
But that's where I think that's where people, you know, yeah, let's just say, I think that's where the government has to be much more understanding that this country is an open country. It has so many, it's diverse,
Yeah,
very diverse. So there should be more understanding to create, you know, what's it called, language barriers, you know, groups or something. Just to find a way to translate to those people that find it hard to understand our language. So you'd be able to just break it down to them so they can actually understand that this is what, you know, be more knowledgeable to help more.
Definitely. And I think, like, there are definitely access to those sorts of things, but if you're being denied that access, that's the issue at hand. You know, for example, you may have access to translators all over the world to help you understand what you can do, but despite them existing, if you don't know that you can access them, and if you don't have the ability to access them because of an abusive partner or family or something like that, that's
difficult.
That's the main problem.
That's difficult.
Definitely.
And I do agree with it. It is the main problem, and it's also, it is the main problem. I think also, while you said that, you know, people don't know that they have to, they don't even know this rule. I also think people need to be more knowledgeable. People actually need to read more. People need to actually, you know, they've got to read the laws more. You know, one thing I've actually started doing, I have to say, I can't lie about this, okay? But I've been actually reading, you know, what's it called? The rules and regulations, you know, the laws of 1980, all that kind of stuff. People actually have to be more aware of it. Because, you know, when the police, you know, like a stop and search or whatever, when that happens to you, you actually need to know your rights.
Yeah.
Because the police will tell you your rights. But if you are not knowledgeable about your rights, they can play you.
Definitely.
And I think that's what's happening. You know, because people don't know that this sort of rule is out there for them to, you know, to tackle against domestic abuse. They don't know that it's out there because they don't also read more. They feel like either one, the government maybe is not helping out, or they just feel like they're alone.
Definitely.
And I think that if they were to actually want to help themselves, is be reading more.
Yeah, honestly, I read a lot. Maybe not on the laws of this country, because
That's good.
I'll
You need to teach me.
I'll be perfectly honest. This country doesn't really interest me as much as the world itself. You know?
Because I don't want to be mean to this country. I keep saying I love this country, okay? I do love the UK. But no, honestly, it doesn't teach you how important education is.
Definitely not.
It doesn't teach you how important it is. But remember, we're going to keep that one to another day.
Definitely.
But it's true, isn't it?
Definitely, it is true that this country does not teach you to value education. It just pushes you up forward even though you may be lacking behind. It doesn't give you the drive to achieve for yourself.
It just, yeah, that's it. And everybody that's, what's crazy, if you fail, you go to the next year.
Yeah.
If you pass, you still go to the next year.
There is
Ain't no problem, man. It's like
there is no consequence.
there's no consequence, exactly. And what they didn't understand is this is going to hurt them in the long run.
Yeah.
Because if you don't teach people that there's consequences to this, they just think that that's cool, that's normal. And now let's go back into the domestic violence. If you didn't teach them that this is what they needed to learn and why they needed to learn this,
then you don't have an escape from that.
they can't have an escape. And what's the suffer, or what's the consequences?
It's suffering to them.
That's it. It's suffering for them. Because they don't actually, one, the country doesn't teach you how important education is. And because you don't understand how important education is, you just came in here, they don't teach you why it's important to learn these things. So in your head, you're like, cool, it's not that important, because, the government doesn't drive it in my head, so it's fine, we just go to the next thing. But you don't know in the long run, when you get into a relationship or whatever, because you didn't study. And I'm not saying study about domestic violence. I'm saying study about the rules, the regulations, what to do. Read the small print. Because you don't read that, you suffer the consequences.
Precisely.
And the consequences, like we just said, is living in a house with an abusive partner. And it's not your fault. I know it sounds weird. I'm not trying to blame anyone that it's their fault that they're in the
Precisely.
situation.
It's never their fault.
It's not. But it's the fact that if you were more aware, and if you were more knowledgeable, just facts and stuff that are going on, you would be much more ready for situations.
Yeah.
But it's still not too late for them, because now,
they have the time to read over.
They have the time, till your last dying breath, till you are done, till you've done the last, how do they say it? Till the old lady calls you back. Is that how they say it?
I believe so.
I think so. I don't know how the word goes, but if you remember it, just put it in the comment section. But my point is, till the old lady sings, whatever, you still have time. You have a long time, a lot of time to still catch up on things you've missed on, read your rights, so that you just don't get played around by the government and just be made a fool.
Or by people.
Go on, sorry.
Yeah, it's not just the government that can play you. It's everyone in your life can.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, people can be a whole lot more vicious than they turn out to be in the end.
Yeah, shine your eye. That's what my African people always say. Shine your eye. Don't just think that your friend is your friend, because your friend will play you.
Definitely.
And I'm not saying that let's be real about it. You just have eyes at the back of your head, so you can just be aware when things are what's going on around you, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking as well. I think we've touched a few on the issues in it. Now let's go into this, because as much as there's so many negatives, and we don't want this show to just be about bringing on board the negatives and bringing on just talking about all the bad things. There's always got to be a solution, because in youth empowerment, we are here to empower the youth. We want the youths to do better with themselves. We want them to actually know that, yes, they're in a situation, but they're not going to be in that situation forever. They should always have a solution, or think of a solution. And if they're not able to think of a solution, that's why we're here.
Precisely.
That's why we're here. So, seeing that we've been talking about the lockdown issues, what are solutions for you? Seeing like we've already spoken about, what are your solutions?
Specifically relating to the youth, schools are still open, which is one of the most important things right now. Mostly because it is keeping children out of crime, gang violence, and drug abuse and things like that.
Yes, it is.
But at the same time, it's also giving us the ability to showcase that we are not the problem. The government can't blame us for COVID like we have before.
Yeah.
We are not a scapegoat anymore. What we are is a model of what we could, what everyone else around us could be. What we do have to do is we have to lead by example. We have to set the record straight that we are not just some hooligans running around.
And this is the youth, aren't you? This is the youth you're saying that
this
should lead by example.
is the youths that are responsible for that image that they create. And you can't just leave it to the upper classes to do this for you.
No.
If you are still able to go outside and if you are still exposed to COVID, you have to take every single measure to protect yourself, those around you, those exposed to you in different ways. You have to take every single measure you can to protect those people, because in the end, it reflects on you as a person, to take those measures, and it reflects on the youths
In the whole.
as a community. If COVID numbers keep going, we are going to be the people blamed. If they drop considerably more than they did in the first lockdown, we are going to be the people that we are now safe from that judgment of the government that has happened before.
And that's if we just follow.
Yeah. It's as simple as following the rules.
See, that's very, very true. But, let's call a spade, man. We youths find it hard to follow the rules. Like, you're telling us to follow these rules. Oh, yeah, follow the rules and regulations, and this will help you. But then it is hard for youths to do that.
I would say it's not as hard as it seems. Like,
Okay.
the people I know, especially, we tend to follow the COVID regulations a lot more than I see adults doing.
Yeah, I know that.
And it's definitely, I notice it a lot with younger people. We are a lot more worried about COVID, therefore we take a lot more precautions with it, right? Like, I think adults are not as scared of it as they should be.
No, I see what you're saying. Because in my own take, yes, they are not. And the reason why is just because they are, I wouldn't say them anyways, but more the youths, they're more bothered about it just because of what's, social media or the news that are passing around. Because, this is new for us. This is new for us when it comes to getting all these kind of numbers thrown at our faces of this is the amount of people that are dying, this is the amount of people that are going, this is the amount, that kind of thing. But my own take is if youths are meant to, follow the rules and regulations, shouldn't there be like some kind of like a reward scheme? Because we love rewards, don't we?
I would say there is a reward at the end.
What do you reckon? What's the reward?
I'd say the reward is the end of lockdown, to be honest, and everyone's looking forward to that.
Oh yeah, gonna be a party after party lockdown. No, lockdown after party. That's what I'm gonna call it.
Yeah, I'd say that if we look at it that way, then we have the same mindset we did in the first lockdown. The lower the numbers, the less we have to stay here. The more we strive to lower them numbers, the less we have to stay here. And I think that's something we have to constantly repeat to ourselves.
That's true. And I think it boils down to just following the rules and the regulations. Because it's so true. The rules and the regulations are really simple. The rules and regulations are very, very simple, which is stay at home. If you don't stay at home, go outside with your mask. Social distancing. 2 meters. If you stink, make it 5 meters. If you stink, make it 5 meters. But yeah, social distancing, wipe your hands, wash your hands, and just respect other people's space. That's just the simple rules that the government has laid out for us. And I agree with the reward scheme. People are looking forward to the after lockdown. And lastly, this one I just put in there, but I don't think it is. But reduction in spending. People are spending less money in transport. Whatever, cool. But that's one of the solutions.
I would say that's a bad thing. Bear in mind, TfL provides jobs for people.
Okay.
Jobs which in the end end up supporting them through the same lockdown that we're all going through. And if you're spending less on transport, then that means they're getting paid less. And that in the end becomes a circle around the same problem.
Already. And then that's not solving the issues. And also they'll spend more money on something else, like online shopping.
Precisely.
And stuff like
Amazon stocks have gone way up.
Yeah. The guy has, within this lockdown, he's become a trillionaire. No, was it? No? Billionaire? Trillionaire? He's the first trillionaire, I think it was, or something like that. He's made millions of dollars from this. Because it's been an increase.
Yeah. It's the only option people have.
It's true. And I hope, I want to have some of that money. That's all I'm going to say. But, since we've come to, we've kind of covered up everything.
Definitely.
Is there anything else you would like to say, not advice to the youth, but it's more of, to cope within this lockdown? What would you say?
To cope within this lockdown, I would say that the most we can do and the most we will be able to do for the foreseeable future is don't give up, follow the rules, and in the end we will get to the same place we did with the first lockdown. We will get to slowly opening back up again. And that was the plan from the beginning, correct? Just don't think that COVID is the only thing in your way.
There's more to this.
Yeah,
Actually,
there's more to life than COVID.
And because everyone's thinking that COVID is like as if it's the end of the world.
Yeah,
thing,
precisely.
but it's not
This
really.
has happened before. This has happened before in 2003 with SARS. And what has happened? We're here today.
We're already here 17 years later. But yes, people should be able to learn from this and actually think this is just a blip. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
Precisely.
It's actually not the end of the world. This is where you're meant to learn something. Take whatever you need to learn from this and move on and let it teach you on how to become something or someone better. And for me, lastly, I would just say, being able to create more, stronger family bonds.
Definitely.
While families are being stuck in their houses, there should actually be more togetherness. If it's to play some games, family games, anything to get you guys working together, it's the only best way to actually cope in this pandemic, because we don't know. I mean, he said a month, but we don't know how long this lockdown is going to be. But while you're there, create your creative mind, let it go wild, let it go crazy, let it go boom, and let it be within your family and learn from your family, because while you're in there, you're learning. Then once the lockdown is out, you're going back into the real world. Whatever you've learned in there is what you're going to take out to the real world. So I hope I hope people out there listening to this and actually thinking or being creative on how they can actually cope within this lockdown. I hope the lockdown does not, bring
Lost another for 6 months?
Yeah, I hope it's not another 6 months thing, because I can't lie, like, this is my birthday month, and, Boris, you kind of just ruined my birthday plans still. So, I don't know, I might have to pull up at your crib and just do a party there. I'll bring my mask and everything. But yeah, since we've come to the end, I was going to say Maria, we don't have anything else to say, yeah?
Definitely not.
So guys, thank you, and thanks for staying tuned to another episode of Youth Empowerment. I'm glad that you've actually stuck to the end. I hope, and I would love you guys to subscribe, like, and share. Yes, that handsome face is me over there. But yeah, like and subscribe and share, and let more people know, because the more people that actually are shown this, the more they can be aware of whatever is going on around them, or just whatever. But thank you, and I hope to see you next time. Giddy giddy. No? That's it.